All right, there we are. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. It is the PSCRB meeting for April 1st, 2021. We will start with roll call. Serena Fish,
Here.
Dr. Farmer.
Here.
Okay, I know Dr. Black's not going to be here today. She has some medical issues. I don't see Mr. Woodard. I don't see Pastor Bennett. I don't see Mr. Taylor. Oh, here we go. Robert is our present. We're taking roll call. Mr. Woodard.
Present.
Okay. And there's Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, we're taking roll call.
Present.
All right. So we do have a quorum. Like I said, I don't see Pastor Bennett is not present currently. Dr. Black will not be present. And all the other ones are here. So we will proceed with public comment. Ms. Richards, do we have anybody sign up for public comment?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the March meeting minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? I know mine were in my spam, so I didn't see that, but I did see them today. Is there any corrections, additions? Anybody noticed? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Okay, and seconded by Ms. Fish has her hand up. And we will vote on these. Dr. Farmer?
Yes.
Ms. Fish?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
And I, Robert, yes, as well. So those minutes have passed. Moving on to number 5, we will update the complaints received by the Bloomington Police Department. Mr. Chief Walmsley, you want to take over for that?
Okay. As of today's date, we've received 4 complaints for 2021. The 4th one is completed. It's actually sitting on my desk. I just haven't had a chance to review it yet. Allegations for the 4 complaints that we have 1 for unlawful arrest, 1 for dissatisfied with service, 1 harassment complaint, 1 violation of policy, and 1 for excessive force. Total calls for service for the month of February, just to kind of relate for the 1 complaint, we had 2021, we had 4,279 calls for service, actually down a little bit from February of 2020, which we were at 5,087. So about 808 less calls for service this year. Going on, you want me to just continue on through here, Mr. Vasquez? Okay. Going on to the TASER report. For the month of March, work out here. We had 5 incidents involving the use of a TASER. All of them were only displayed only units. 3 were against white males, 2 were against black males. Just a quick rundown of this, I guess the incident you would say. First one was on a black male who was a wanted subject who was found hiding under a piece of carpet, would not make his hands visible to the officers. Second one was a white male who fled a traffic stop. There was no pursuit, but officers later located the subject running from a vehicle. They attempted to arrest him after they caught him. He was uncooperative. They had a TASER pointed at him until he did comply. Third one was a black male. They were getting ready to search a subject who was on parole. He took off running. Ultimately, they caught up to him, had him at taser point while they placed him in custody. He had an illegal gun on him. Fourth one was a white male. Subject had beat up his pregnant girlfriend and fled while he was armed with a knife. Officers located him and had a taser pointed at him till another officer arrived to assist in putting him in custody. The fifth one was a white male involving a domestic battery incident where the subject was found hiding in a closet, and the taser was pointed at him until they were able to get him secured. The last thing I have is I'll just go on to the next one with updates. I think I spoke last meeting. We got 4 new officers who started the academy about 2 weeks ago. So they're in week 2 of 14. We're getting ready to send 16, I'll say supervisors, but half are supervisors or sergeants. The other half are on our promotional list. We've got a 80-hour Northwestern Supervision of Police Personnel class starting on Monday. So we'll have 16 of our officers going through that process. The last thing I would like to kind of mention, and I'm going to ask for help from you all as well, is our application process is open. And I know I say this a lot, but with the climate going on, it is very difficult to recruit. Our recruiting numbers are extremely low right now for a cutoff that ends on May 31st. We have had only 32 people apply so far. And of the 32, several have failed the written test. So I'm asking you all to kind of put the word out there if possible to help us with that recruiting process. If you have anybody that has any questions, please put them in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to explain if they have questions. And other than that, I'd be open for questions.
Thank you, Chief Walmsley. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Chief Walmsley?
Just real quick, Chief, 16 officers going to training. Is that just the number 16? I'm just curious, how do you decide that? Is that just a max that you can have in a training session, or are you cycling them through, or?
Well, the 16, what I did is most of our supervisors have already attended this class. I had 8 sergeants who have not attended. So I want to get them in first. And then what we did is we went down the list 7 or 8 more and put them in the class because they have a potential of being promoted. Other than that, 16 is about the max that I could probably pull out of the department to send to a training at once and still survive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything for Assistant Chief Walmsley before we move on? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Chief, and excuse me. At our last meeting, we were discussing use of force and show of force. Do you have numbers on that for the month of March?
I'm sorry, that completely slipped my mind. I will make a note and I'll make sure I have that for next meeting. I apologize.
Okay. Now we had included that as information that we wanted to see going forward. So I would appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anything else on the report from Lone Police Department? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to item number 7, which is a quarterly meeting discussions and comments. We had 2 attendees. Oh, there's Pastor Bennett. Pastor Bennett is on. Pastor Bennett, we are on number 7. We just moved on to number 7, which is quarterly meeting discussion and comments. We did have a gentleman pose a number of questions to Assistant Chief Walmsley, which he was able to answer all of them, I believe. That was great. And then we had Mr. Machika on as well. Any other, just some feedback. I would ask anybody if you had any feedback or what you thought of the quarterly meeting. I know these are tough to be attended since they're virtual, but at least we did have some interest from the public, which I thought was great. I guess I'll go first, but thank you, Chief Walmsley, again for answering all those questions. I know he had posed them ahead of time, so you had some time to answer those. I think he was satisfied. I don't think he didn't get any questions that weren't answered. Some of them were, hypothetical questions, which he understood as well. So I think you handled it very well. So I always appreciate Bloomington Police Department being part of our meetings and being able to answer all questions promptly. So thank you. I will open it up to Dr. Farmer. Do you have any feedback from last quarterly meeting?
Not really, I guess. It was my first meeting, so I don't know what it normally looks like, but I really liked the participation from the public and hearing the questions that they had. That especially for us too. I liked the questions that they had, so that's all.
Mr. Woodard?
I was pretty well satisfied.
I think you muted yourself again, Mr. Woodard.
Like Ashley, I'm always pleased to hear that the community is willing to come out and speak with us. And also with that, Ashley, I was also impressed that at your first meeting, you would just jump right in there. So appreciate that.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought that that the quarterly meeting was one handled from the perspective of facilitation. I thought, Mr. Chairman, thought you did an excellent job of keeping us on task and focused. The questions that were raised, Chief Walmsley, I really appreciate your effort to be able to review those questions ahead of time and to have ready answers for the gentleman and for the public comment that was taking place. Some of the questions were pretty direct, and I thought that you handled those extremely well. Those that were presented to us as members of the board, again, I thought that that we handled those questions as well as we could as well. Some points were to be clarified, and I thought that we handled those questions in a professional manner, and so we as members of the board should commend ourselves for the way that we handled those, because some of those questions were indeed directed. And so I thought that that part of the participation was extremely handled extremely well. But again, I can't be more appreciative of Chairman Vasquez for directing us through that task and the number of questions that the gentleman had. I thought that we handled them extremely well.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Fish?
Pretty much all the same as above. I thought it was handled quite well, quite transparent, and that as a board and with the participation of the chief, everything was open and answered. And unless there's something we don't know about, I hope that it did answer the questions that the gentleman had.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. Pastor Bennett?
Yep, I just echo what everybody else said. I thought it was great. I would just say to the community that I think the board welcomes that, right? I think even there was a lot of questions. I enjoyed watching Chief answer the questions, respond. That's what we're here for. the questions that were posed to the board. We responded as we could. So I just appreciated someone taking the time to actually send us questions, right? And then allowing us the opportunity to respond, for Chief to respond. And like I said again, I think the board welcomes the community who ever has questions, whether it's about the board, about our police department. Those questions are welcome here, and we would do our best to answer. But I appreciated those questions that we did get.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up with the, we're as a board. The reason I enjoy this board is everybody's always open, right, to listen to other questions, and sometimes even if you don't agree with them, we learn from questions that are asked. So I appreciate the board always willing to listen to the public and to provide feedback as needed. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if I could, I'd like to ask Chief Walmsley his reaction to the questions that were asked and his overall feeling of the nature of the questions and just his overall impressions of what was discussed.
Chief Walmsley.
Yeah, it was very interesting. A lot of the questions, or I'm not gonna say a lot, but several of them are questions that we do get asked quite often. So some of them were fairly easy to find answers to. Some of them weren't in my purview to say or whatever, so I had to do a little research on, but it was a good experience for me to actually learn about some of these issues, some of the stuff that was coming up in the community. It's definitely stuff that we keep our eyes open for, stuff that we need to try and address. If I know a lot of it had to deal with upcoming legislation, which I wish I had better answers for. We are continuing to reach out to try and find out answers on what certain things mean. I think that's going to be an ongoing process, at least for the next several months. So it was a good experience just to see some of them questions.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief Walmsley. Yeah, of course. Yeah, some of the questions, may we not have all the answers, but what I like from the Bloomington Police Department is that they're always willing, right, to listen to a question. And even if they don't have the answer, as Chief Walmsley said, do some research and eventually, hopefully, be able to provide an answer. But some of them are will not have an answer immediately, as we all in this world now want everything immediate, correct? But so thank you again, everybody, for last quarterly meeting, and we look forward to more questions and more participation from the public. So we'll move on to number 8, which is an update on the surveys and the posters. The survey recently, Mr. Hurt, which he's not in attendance today, did send me an email, and I did forward it to the board. Was everybody able to take a look at the survey as far as how many people had taken it? Of course, we don't have any numbers, the total numbers, as it just closed yesterday. So I will be reaching out to Mr. Hurt maybe next week and trying to get if he can send us another, just a recap of what the answers were to some of those questions and how many people took it in total. Is there anything else that the board would like to see? Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at the survey results this morning around 12 o'clock, and it appeared that over 10,000 people have taken the survey. And I'm extremely impressed with the response to the survey. If we've got 10,000 people that took the time to take a look at the survey, and of course, the fact that the survey was not scientific, it's hard to kind of gauge because we basically were putting people on the honor system to take the survey once. I don't know that there was a mechanism in the survey to prevent someone from taking the survey more than once, but if the response was around 10,000, that's a very excellent representation of people who took the time. I have not really dove into what the results of the survey was, and I would suggest that we form maybe a subcommittee to review those and provide some information even before our next meeting, so that and I see that we have an item on our agenda to discuss the annual report, that we can maybe provide some information to the chairman prior to his report to the city council about the results of the survey.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Fish.
Hi. I agree with Mr. Taylor. I think from what the survey is showing and the amount of numbers, it's going to be a pretty fair representation of how the community feels on some different items. And I'd like to have it on the report to the city. Also, I want to thank Mr. Hurt and Amy Overton for working with me to get the poster done. And we got permission to post it at early voting. So I'm hoping that helped some of the numbers, because definitely people were, what is it called, a QR code, and thank you, Dr. Farmer, for that suggestion. They were definitely taking it. I've been working as an election judge early voting since the 12th, pretty much. And people were definitely looking at it, asking questions about it. And so I'm hoping that did help the numbers. And again, I agree with Mr. Taylor. The numbers are high enough, and that I think we do need to come back in our year-end report. And I would suggest, at least Mr. Taylor, I don't know if Reverend Black is able to do it right now, is maybe look at it with Michael when he comes back, and present, or you do in your report, what that survey showed at large for the community because of the participation and the numbers thereof. Thank you.
Dr. Farmer, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to bring up something pretty minor, but as I was looking at the survey when it was still open, I noticed that for one of the questions, and I don't see it numbered on here, I'm looking at the results that Mr. Hurt sent to us, but it was 4 different things, like officers are biased, officers face difficult situations, like that list. And you had the options of never, rarely, sometimes, frequently, always. And for whatever reason, the survey was set up to where you could only choose one response category one time. So if somebody wanted to put, let's say, never for both officers are biased and officers are more loyal than not, I can't see the full question, they weren't able to do so. So I would just say to maybe keep that in mind as we interpret these results, that people could not choose more than one response category more than once.
Well, thank you for that, Ms. Farmer. Yeah, I think, once we really take a look at this, I will remind the board as well, too, that this review is for the year of 2020, so which is last year. So I don't want to take up too much of 2021. So when I started doing the review, I looked at January of 2020 which led into a little bit of 2021. But I want to make sure we take a look at this and not try to rush it to city council. Make sure we're taking a good look at this, and then maybe this could be something for 2021, when we look back at 2021 review. So I don't want to rush it to city council, but I'm more than happy to listen to if you guys want me to add that to the 2020 annual review. I will be more than happy to do that. Maybe I can just mention it that will be in 2021's review. But again, I just don't want to take, everything from 2020 and 2021. And then when we do our 2021 review, there's nothing there, or not much there for that review. So I just want to keep that in mind. Yes, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I appreciate your point of view. However, based on the last year, I think it's very important that we do include it in this year's, and that we're going to do it again next year. And one of the questions that was on it was additional input, people that would be interested in it, input that I think it is important to include it this year and continue to doing it with changes or updates or suggestions like Dr. Farmer, because I think when you look at the information, it's very important to some of the things that are going on right now as far as accusations and violence, and I'd like to wait for another year. I'd rather see us do it on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. Yes, Dr. Farmer.
Yes, I mean, from that suggestion, if we wanted to begin regularly including this in like annual reports, perhaps the survey could just be opened earlier and closed sooner, so we had more time to really go through those results in depth before the annual report.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that statement, Dr. Farmer. Again, if the board wants me to include it, I'm more than welcome to include it in there, and we can talk about that when we get to number 10 on the agenda. But any other? So, Ms. Fish, if I'm hearing you correctly, the posters were put up, and you were able to get with Ms. Overton and get those at polling places. Is that correct?
Yes. With the help of Michael and Amy Overton, Michael Hurt and Amy Overton, we went from a flyer to a poster. We changed the layout a little bit, and then we got permission to put them up at early voting. So they were where you first came in, both sides. And they seemed to be very receptive to doing the surveys.
Great. And thank you again. Yeah, Mr. Hurd and Ms. Overton, Ms. Fish for coordinating that. As we all know, we do not have a budget. So Mr. Hurt did reach out to me and asked, how are we supposed to print these posters? I'm not sure how he did it, but he got it done. So thank you, everybody who was involved, for printing those posters and getting them put up. Greatly appreciate that. Any other comments on the survey before we move on? Was everybody able to take it survey? Yeah. Okay, good. Yes, Ms. Fish.
A comment that was made by Mr. Taylor. I don't know about anybody else, but once I took it, I could not take it again. So I'm assuming once you take it, then you're locked out of doing it again. Because I wanted to go back in and check something, and it wouldn't let me back in. It says that you've already did the survey.
And I do remember the public comment of last meeting that the gentleman had said that he had already taken it once and it wouldn't allow him to take it again. So
That's good.
Yeah, perfect. Any other comments, questions on the survey? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
As I just glanced at the results of some of the survey, the area that's going to take the most amount of time for us as we review the results of the survey are the individual comments where we left space for the person taking the survey to make whatever comment that they wanted to make. And I'll tell you that that those comments are extensive, and there's quite a few comments that people made to express their opinions about the new police chief and that search. the police department in general. There are several other people expressing their feelings about the police, either pro or con, and other issues that people have with policing in general, not necessarily directed at the Bloomington police, but their own views about policing in general, as well as those that chose not to participate. So there's quite a bit of information to be gleaned. The opinions are a wide spectrum of opinions based on people's individual beliefs, and that's okay, and that's what we requested. That's the information that we were looking for. We wanted a cross section of the community to respond to the survey, to express how people here in Bloomington actually felt about the police and the Bloomington police in particular. So I thought that the survey, while not scientific, will provide us with enough information to be able to share with the council and the city manager and the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Which kind of brings me, I did get an email from Mr. Gleason, and he did mention that he will ask the PSCRB board president or board chair to be part of the selection committee once again, as Mr. Taylor, you were involved in the previous one. So he did say he would reach out when that time comes and ask the board chair to be on that committee. Anything else on number 8 on the survey? Okay, we'll go into item number 9, which is board appointments, reappointments. So we do have two, Pastor Bennett and Ms. Fish's times are coming up here in April. I did reach out to them, and they have agreed to serve another term. So thank you, Pastor Bennett and Ms. Fish, for serving another term. I unfortunately will be stepping off April 31st, and so we do need to vote for a chair. I will, any suggestions of who, of course, all of the board is great candidates for chair, and which I was honored to be selected as chair this past year. But I will open up the floor for any suggestions of a new board. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, seeing as how you won't be leaving the board since your date of resignation is April 31st, there are no 31 days in April, so that means that you'll indefinitely be a member of the board.
You caught that.
Yes, I did. So I appreciate the fact that you will remain chairman of the board. That aside, I'd like to express my appreciation to you as our chair for the great job that you've done in leading us this past year, and being a former chair, I know that that's a difficult task to kind of to lead this board, as important a board as this is, and I think that you've done an outstanding job as board chair. We understand the reasoning why you're stepping down, and thanks to the recent article in the Panagraph for the recognition that you've had for your project that you're doing with your bed project, which is an outstanding outreach to the community to serve a need that is greatly needed. Your dedication to that project and other reasons that we didn't kind of go into when you and I discussed it is commendable. So we thank you for your dedication not only to this board, but your dedication to the community as well. And I'll let other people comment about Chairman Vasquez before I give my opinion about the next chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Appreciate that. Ms. Fish, go ahead.
Well, I was basically going to say the same thing, is that I know Mr. Vasquez is involved not only in the Bedfoods, but also in other community projects, and is an asset to the community and has been an asset to this board. And I'm sure wherever he goes, whatever he does, he will continue to do so. But yeah, it has been a pleasure working with him. And like Mr. Taylor said, obviously he's not leaving because there is no 31 days in April. So never mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. Pastor Bennett.
Yeah, I just echo the comments of Serena and Mr. Taylor. You've done a great job, especially taking over. Art did a great job. He being our first chairman, he did such a great job. So it was a tough act to follow, but you kept the board on track, on pace, handling all the things you needed to handle. So I just want to commend you and tell you that it's been an honor being on the board with you and having you as our chairman.
Thank you, Pastor Bennett. Mr. Woodard.
Yeah, I just want to go on the record and say that I don't think there is any way to even begin to thank you for what you've done and continue to do in the community. And for that, I just say thank you. Bravo. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. Dr. Farmer, you don't have to say nice things since you've been only here a month, so it's okay.
Oh, I would just say it's been great to meet you virtually, and even though I've only known you a short time that I've been on this board, it's been great. So.
Well, thank you. I really want to thank the whole board as a whole. It's been a pleasure and both a pleasure and an honor to serve on this board. The questions and the comments and the conversations that we have, I've learned so much, not only from a citizen point, but as far as professionally. It's helped me in other things that I've done and other boards I've been on. I've learned so much as far as the police department side as well. Thank you, Chief Walmsley, for always, being there and able to answer any questions that we may have or comments. Miss Overton, thank you for always keeping us in track with emails and Mr. Hurt, thank you very much for your participation in joining the board. And lastly, I wanted to also thank Phil Melder. He's the IT gentleman here who has been taking care of us ever since we've gone virtual. He's been great. So I just want to thank everybody. And I know the board's in good hands. And, it's time for a new voice. And I want to see, I'm not going to just leave and not continue watching these meetings, because I think what this board is doing is important. And we've come a long way in these last 4 years, and I see it going in a wonderful direction. And I know the next chairman will be twice as good as me. So thank you very much, everybody. And now to who we, as far as the board, who would you like to see as your next chair? Well, let's start with, let's see, Ms. Fish.
Another two gentlemen that are very active in the community, although they always keep saying they don't have time, that I would like to see, and they could decide between them, Mr. Woodard and Pastor Bennett, because of their other involvements in the community, that I think they would be a good team. And I'd like to nominate them to be our next chairman and vice chairman, and maybe between the two of them they can decide who and what.
Pastor Bennett, I'll let you go next.
So I had to quickly throw in. So I would, and I would truly recommend Woodward and Dr. Farmer. I think they would do an awesome job. I really don't feel like would have the sufficient amount of time to actually do the chairman's job justice, especially coming after Mr. Taylor and Mr. Vasquez. I think at that point, you guys would begin to look at me and call me a slouch. So I don't know. That's why, especially since I was already recommended as vice chair, I will give that position. I would recommend that Woodward and Farmer. And that would be my recommendation. And if neither one of them wanted to do it, then I would recommend Taylor and Fish.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you for the compliment, Reverend Bennett. I appreciate that. We have a vice chairman for a reason, and the vice chairman's role is currently filled by Reverend Bennett. To my mind, I believe that the correct position is that of the vice chairman to move into the role of chairman if available. As the last time we went through this process, Ms. Lancaster, who was the vice chairman for the 2 years that I served as chairman, was not going to renew her position on the board, which opened up the vice chairman's position and a new chairman to the board. So if we were to and again, it's to me it's a matter of progression, which means that I would suggest that Reverend Bennett be the board chairman, and we select someone else to be vice chair. I would be most pleased with Mr. Woodard being the vice chairman, but again, I would and I don't have the board rules in front of me right now, which is and the question I have is the selection of the board chairman an annual selection, or is it for a 2-year term? And I guess I would have to ask Mr. Juergens to clarify that for me ahead of time, because I believe that it's an annual election that we're required to make.
Yeah, thank you, Member Taylor. I'm looking for the bylaws. I just looked in the code and it does not specify in there. So give me a second to pull up the bylaws, if you will.
Okay.
Sure. Ms. Fish, did you have a comment?
Unless somebody else has them.
When we started, it was annual. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. It doesn't, but it was annual, which is why Mr. Taylor stepped down and you stepped up.
Well, no, if I recall, the chairman could not serve more than 2 years consecutively, and that was the reason why I knew that I was stepping down at the end of the 2nd year, and that was the reason why I personally don't remember being selected after the 1st year to serve as the 2nd year. But maybe someone else can refresh my memory on that.
Okay, so the bylaws provide that annually and starting in their first meeting in May shall elect a chair and a vice chair. The chair and vice chair each serve a term of 1 year and shall be eligible for re-election, but shall not serve more than 2 consecutive years. So that is what the bylaws provide.
Thank you, Mr. Juergens.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, were you done with your recommendation? Or you're-
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Woodard?
Yes. First of all, I'm honored and I'm humbled by the conversation. This is tough for me. It really is. Um, I really believe in the work that we're doing. And I know that any one individual on this committee could serve in that capacity. And again, like I said, I'm honored. Um, and the good thing is not a vote today. To be honest with you, uh, I have a 14-year-old son, uh, freshman in high school, involved in sports. And I find myself at the school, not just once, but sometimes twice a day for practices and things of that nature that he's involved in. And I actually promised my family that I was going to try to divest myself of some of my civic activity. And I think one of my biggest weaknesses is I find it really very hard to say no to anyone. And I'm trying very hard to correct that. Again, we talk about the social climate and the work that we're doing, basically as a result of what's been happening in the community, in particular with young Black men. And I'm just torn between that because it's like, I have a son at home with myself that I really need to be spending more time with. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. Ms. Farmer, Dr. Farmer.
Hi, thanks. So I would echo what a lot of others have said. I think all of you are super capable and would be fantastic in this role. So, like I said, I don't know all of you very well, any of you really very well. So, but thank you. And Pastor Bennett, I think you would be excellent in this role, as well as I would echo those of talking about Mr. Woodard as well. Although I respect the fact that if you don't have time, I respect that too. But that's where I'm at right now and thinking about it.
Thank you, Dr. Farmer. I will put my 2 cents in, and ever since I was elected chair, which it was an honor for me, and I had Pastor Bennett as a vice. I have always respected Pastor Bennett's his questions that he poses are thoughtful, they're insightful, and I'm always paying very close attention. And I thought he would be excellent as a chairman. But as he stated, I respect that he, his time is limited as well as Mr. Woodard. You were the second vote for me as far as chair. I understand it, and it does take some time commitment. I will say that, as Mr. Taylor knows. But my other one was Dr. Black. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us. So if you two cannot, we're at a little bit of a dilemma, which would leave Ms. Fish. I think you would be wonderful as well. So yeah, I was a little hesitant as well when I first took over, but you get comfortable. Everybody makes you feel comfortable, as this board knows, and you just, you take on the responsibility and you learn. It is a learning process, and I would recommend that even if you're a little hesitant, just maybe give it a little try for a couple months, and you would see that, hey, okay, it's not as time consuming as I really thought it is. Sometimes it is, especially when it comes to quarterly meetings. But I would just let everybody know that just keep it in the back of your mind. Sit on it and see what you think. We still got another month to make a decision. So again, my vote would be Pastor Bennett and Mr. Woodard. Yes, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I just want to say I'd be happy to come in as vice, but I really think for their involvement in the community, I agree with some of the comments about the things that we're dealing with right now, being very sensitive to others, especially the stakeholders. And I really would like to see Mr. Bennett or Mr. Woodard step up to take the leading role. I'm happy to do secondary, but it's not that I don't have I just think they're a better representation right now of where we're going in the community, and that they would be, although I know just about everybody and most of the stakeholders too, but I hope maybe they could do it together. But I'd like to see one of them, if at all possible, to lead us for the next year. Thank you.
Pastor Bennett.
And this decision is made by what next meeting in
Yes, which would be,
May?
let me see, I have it here. May 6th is our next board meeting, which I'd be willing still to lead that one. But then at that time, I would ask the board to vote and vote for the new chair and vice chair. Okay. Any other? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board rules basically state that we have a new chairman in place in May, and that the selection of that chairman is in May. So I'm thinking that is probably the time that we should select the next chairman. The discussions prior to it are very helpful to me as we consider who our next chairman is. If I also recall what the board rules stipulate, is that a member of the board whose term is expiring or is leaving ahead of their term expiring continue to serve on the board until such time as their replacement is appointed. And if I'm correct, Mr. Juergens, if you could clarify that for me, that means that Mr. Vasquez would remain on the board until his replacement is appointed. And I'm thinking that you've already indicated that you were resigning from the board, so I'm sure that the mayor is well aware of that. So I'm not trying to well, we are trying to hold on to you as long as we can, but I think that it would behoove us that you lead us through our next meeting and we select the chairman at our next meeting, and then you continue to serve until such time as your replacement is appointed. Am I correct in that, Mr. Juergens?
Well, so actually for a resignation, that will take effect at the date that's put in the resignation letter. So if Chairman Vasquez has already submitted a resignation and put a date in there, that would be the effective date of the resignation. It's when you're thinking of a holdover. So if for example, Chairman Vasquez's term had expired, he would continue to serve until a new person was appointed to replace him. So, and I'm not sure, Chairman Vasquez, when your resignation, if you've already submitted an actual resignation, and if it had a date on there, then that would be the date that would be tied to the resignation.
And may I suggest that we review that letter of resignation, because if April 31st was put on there, then that is a definite extension of an indefinite period of time.
So yes, the letter did say April 31st, which that is correct. Me not knowing there was only 30 days in April, who knew that? So again, Mr. Juergens, if we can't decide today, as you stated, maybe we will have to decide today. I'm willing to stay over till the next month, but if my letter is is concrete, then we will decide today.
Yeah, we can probably work to maybe update or revise your resignation letter and change that to the May, if the next meeting you said is maybe what, May 7th?
May 6th.
May 6th, maybe your resignation date becomes May 7th.
Okay.
And then at that May 6th meeting, a new chairman is elected and takes over at that meeting. The other thing I was going to say is be cautious in terms of having conversations between those meetings. Remember, two of you can only speak at a time without violating the Open Meetings Act. So, I would encourage you not to have, any group conversations, obviously, or group email conversations. But if, one of you are thinking of being interested in the chairmanship and you want to talk to Chairman Boscaz or former Chairman Taylor about what all was involved with that, certainly you could have those conversations and talk to them one-on-one about it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Jurgens. Yes, I will update my resignation letter to May 7th. That way it gives us another month. In the meantime, I do ask the board to think about it. If you are thinking about it, please reach out to myself or Mr. Taylor, and we'd be more than willing to fill you in on just some of the day-to-day things that are needed as far as a chair. Again, I think everybody is capable. If you're a little hesitant, I believe you are capable and would be a great chair. So just keep that in mind for next meeting. I will put that on the agenda and we will vote on a new chair and vice chair for May 6th is the next meeting. Okay. Any other questions, comments on board appointments and reappointments of chair? Mr. Taylor.
I had a question about whether or not we have any feedback from the mayor or the city council with reference to the appointment of the youth members of to the board, as to whether or not we have any other people who have expressed interest, or is the mayor prepared to appoint those two individuals?
Ms. Richards, did Mr. Hurt leave any notes on that end?
No, I have no notes concerning this particular topic. However, I can follow up with Mr. Hurt to find out if he has heard anything thus far, unless you would like to follow up, Chair Bosquez.
Yes, I can certainly follow up on that, and I will put that on the agenda for the May meeting as well. Just to get an update on it, if we've had any interest on the youth, and if there's any appointments coming in the next month or so. Anything else on item number 9? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 10, which is the annual review to the council for year 2020. I did send that out to the board. Hopefully you had a chance to look it over. Is there any additions? I know you guys said you wanted me to add the survey, but I'm going to agree with Dr. Farmer. There's quite a bit of information that we do have to go through, and I don't want to rush it. I just don't want it to make it feel rushed. I can mention it on there, and then maybe at a later date this year, we can present that to the city council. But I don't think I want to add any specifics, because there is quite a bit of information on there that needs to go through and make sure we get that. Mr. Taylor.
Do you have a date that you're going to make your presentation to the city council?
I wanted to do it before May 1st. However, because that's when my original resignation was going to be. But however, I can move it back until May 7th before then, if we can get it on city council. If not, then the new board chair would have to be able to present that to city council. So I am wanting to get it on before my resignation date of May 7th.
May I make a suggestion that, first of all, that request be expedited, because I do believe that it would probably be best served the board that you as chairman make that report to the city council, and even to the point that while the results of the survey have not been finalized, that you can even if it's just a mention that that the survey has taken place, that the information is being tabulated, and that a later report to the city council can be made by either the chairman or the person designated by the chairman to make that report to the city council. And I'm sure that that any one of us could serve in that position.
Sure. Yeah, I will add that on to the review. Is there any other additions or anything else that you would like to see on there? Okay, hearing none. I will add that the survey has been taking place, that we do need to look through the information, and at a later date this year, a representative from the PSCRB board would present to City Council on our findings on this survey. Okay, anything else on that before going to item number 11? Hearing none, item number 11 is future meetings and dates. Like as I mentioned, our next board meeting is May 6th and at 3:30, and it's still virtual. Is that correct, Ms. Richards? And nothing has changed on that end?
That is correct. So far, our meetings will remain virtual at this time.
Okay. And as far as topics for the agenda, currently I have, let's see, that we will vote for a new board president and vice president on the next meeting. We would get an update from the youth board involvement to see if we have any applications in-house or coming through, and if there's any appointments. And that is all that I have currently. Is there anything else that the board would like me to add to the next month's agenda? And of course, it would be no report from Bloomington Police Department as far as complaints, or if we have any reviews, but I didn't hear any in Mr. Chief Walmsley's presentation that we do have any in the coming down. So hearing none, I will move to item number 12, which is the executive session to review our closed session minutes. Mr. Jurgens, do we need to do anything before we make a motion to go into closed session?
No, we just need a motion to go into closed session under 2C21 to review and approve closed session meeting minutes and do our semi-annual review to determine the need for confidentiality of closed session minutes.
Okay,
And
so
we'll take that motion, go into a different Zoom room, come back, and then we will take action, or at least make an announcement when we get back.
okay. So before we make the motion, you'll log out of this Zoom meeting. Another link has been sent to your email. You'll log on to there. We'll be in closed meeting session. Once we finish with that, you will log out of that meeting and then come back to the original link that Mr. Melder sent. Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session, site 2C21, to review and approve closed session minutes? Ms. Fish?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woodard. Okay. We will go into closed session.
Wait, first have to take the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're correct. Dr. Farmer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard,
Yes.
Pastor Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Robert, myself, yes.
All right.
All right, here we go. Jeff, do we have to take roll call again that we're back in session?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just waiting for Miss Fish. Maybe Miss Fish is there. Well, let's take roll call that we are back into regular session. We'll start with Dr. Farmer,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Mr. Woodard,
Here.
Pastor Bennett,
Here.
Miss Fish,
Here.
and Robert, I am here as well. Mr. Jurgens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so this is the part of the meeting where we announce that the board has decided to keep its closed session minutes that it is approved to date confidential. This does not mean that they will always be kept confidential. They will continue to be reviewed, and specifically hope to have a more careful review once we are able to meet in person again, where we can have the minutes physically in front of everybody and hopefully get out of this virtual environment. So this is not a forever decision, but the announcement at this point is that the meeting minutes that do relate to personnel will be kept confidential. And that is all I have on that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jurgens. Noticing that was the last item agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn? I think I am. You'll have to say aye because I think everybody's still on my camera. Do I have a
It's
motion to
Miss-
adjourn our meeting?
Ms. Fish, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, okay. Second by, I believe, Ms. Farmer or Pastor Bennett. My connection must be slowing down, which means it's time to go. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All in favor, I said. All's in
Yeah.
favor.
Oh.
All in favor.
All in favor? Favor say, raise your hand.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.